This is Private Matters. I'm Max van Praag. We're talking about authentically thriving in intimacy, a public forum in which we talk to doctors, authors, coaches, teachers from all over the world about this topic. Today's show is devoted to an organization that does a lot of good in this area. It's the Human Awareness Institute, HI. And the HI Institute was founded by Stan Dale in 1968, and for over 40 years has helped over 80,000 people gaining more confidence, communication skills in their intimate sexual relationships all over the world. And today we have Peter Rengel representing the HI Institute. Welcome to the show, Peter.
Thanks, Max.
Great to have you here.
Good to have you too.
And you are one of the 7 main leaders of the HI Institute. I know Stan Dale has passed away. You're one of the leaders, and you were with the HI Institute since 1988. You and your wife, to whom you have been married for 26 years, both teach for the HI Institute. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Max.
And how did you come to the HI Institute?
When in 1988, my wife and I, well, she wasn't my wife at that point, we had been together about 3 years, and actually a client of mine recommended that we go to the workshop because she went and got so much from it. So we went, and amazing things happened. I had already been to India and spent quite a number of years in my own spiritual quest, and had never quite experienced such a heart-opening kind of experience as I did there. And by actually my first workshop, by noon of Saturday, I knew I'd be leading these workshops because it was so profound for me. And when my wife and I first went to the workshops, we didn't even know there were areas of intimacy that we weren't communicating about, because we didn't know what was available and what wasn't. And through HI, actually, some years down the line, my wife, when we got together, neither of us wanted to have a child, and my wife changed and did want to have a child, and I still didn't want to have a child. And I think because of the tools that we learned at HI, we were able to be in about a 2-year conversation with her still wanting and me not wanting, and it didn't break us up, which it could have. But I think the tools we learned there actually helped us to stay in partnership around that. And then fortunately for me, something changed in me, and I realized that I could be a dad in a different way than I was to my son, or than my father was to me, rather. And when I realized that, we went ahead and had a child, and he's actually been my greatest teacher.
Wow, great.
Yeah.
And so, just for everybody to understand the structure of HI, it's a weekend workshop that's being taught all over the world in different countries. In Germany, in Australia, and in many different states in this country. And I know a lot of the workshops take place at Harbin. It's a weekend workshop called Love, Intimacy and Sexuality. And since over 40 years, this workshop has been taught, and there's now 7 or 8 different levels.
Yes, there are 8 levels at this point.
There are 8 levels, and that's not just to make people come back, or it's you actually teach different things.
Yeah, there's a different theme to each level, and level 1 is called the miracle of love, or love is a miracle. And really what happens there's like this chord of humanity that's struck that has people feel incredibly safe, incredibly revealing of their experience as a human being. And when you find out that, we call it relating insides to insides, we relate heart to heart, and you realize the commonality we have, both men with men, men with women, women with men, just incredible at the deeper levels. All we want to do is love and be loved. And there's an experience that happens there for most people that has their heart open, and just a very tender experience, and they realize they're normal, that they have their pain and their joys. And when we share those honestly and intimately, not only do our relationships with other people improve, but the relationship with ourselves improves too.
Yes. I did remember taking the HI workshop level 1 some years ago, and you were leading it. And the main thing I took away from the workshop is that everything is a choice. And that from moment to moment we're making choices. It's not so that we're out of control. We can learn to say yes when we mean yes, and no when we mean no. And for some people this is not always natural. Would you comment on that?
Sure. I think oftentimes as children, our parents have trained us like, you make a choice and you better stick with that choice till the day you die at some level. And what we find out as we really explore who we are as human beings, that we fluctuate from moment to moment to moment. So there's a way to really respect that fluctuation and speak it honestly and truthfully. There's something we call a covert lie, which is kind of not speaking. It's not an overt lie, but it's a way of not speaking because we're trying to read what other people can accept, or just not being truthful to ourselves. And when we allow ourselves to fluctuate from moment to moment, which is the truth of who we are as human beings, then there's freedom, there's honesty, there's connection, there's just a beautiful flow that happens. So, for instance, we'll present an exercise to the room, and someone, when they hear the exercise, may say, well, that doesn't sound so great for me, I'll sit on the side. And so they start to watch the exercise unfold, and then something changes in them, and they go, wow, I would like to be in that exercise. So then we'll help them to go ahead and enter into the exercise, honoring that they've changed their choice. So we have no agenda for how people go through the workshops, except they be as true to themselves and choose moment by moment whatever they'd like.
Nice, nice. Can you remember a very memorable experience from where you felt like really you were making a particular contribution to somebody during the workshop? I mean, it happens a lot, of course, but does any particular memory comes to mind?
When you ask that question, I think of thousands. I mean, to focus on one, I don't know that I really can. You know, I lead exercises in which people are in different, they might be in pairs or in a small group and that kind of thing. But there's also another format where if people choose to come in front of the room and share with the room, sometimes we'll kind of work with that person in front of the room to help them find their magnificence, really. And so I actually don't have a memory for specific moments, because there have literally been thousands of them through the years. And what I watch is that people's lives transform, that I've known many people for 20 years, and we've gone through our lives together, and I've watched them find more love and be more tender in their hearts and more connected. There's a beauty of what happens within the weekend, and there's also a community that's grown outside the workshops if people choose to participate in that. And I think the community and a place for people to belong and believe in and pour their energy into, if they so choose, is profound as well as whatever happens in the room on the weekends.
It's really amazing what Stan Dale has done by creating this institute. He had a very clear mission. I talked to him once. I remember talking to him on the phone once, and he told me that he was a sexologist and that he started this to help people have better intimate relationships. And I think he has received the Mahatma Gandhi Peace Medallion for his work, and only 10 people have received that on the whole planet. It's quite amazing what he has done.
Yeah. So how they actually, the seed of the workshops, during the Korean War, Stan was drafted into the army, and through a series of circumstances, he actually ended up in Japan rather than in Korea. And he got invited to a party at a Geisha House one evening, and actually was kind of bored with the party, so he went into the garden behind the house and ran into the owner of the Geisha House there. And the two of them just had a beautiful, heartfelt connection. And the man was a teacher of sorts, a guru of sorts, and he said to Stan, well, I'd want to invite you to live in the Geisha House with me.
And this is kind of a sophisticated word for brothel.
Geisha is actually, it's deeper than a brothel, because there's a certain way geishas are trained to honor and revere whoever comes to them. And there's a difference, it's kind of integrating sexuality and reverence, which is the exact seed that Stan wondered, why in our culture do we have such a shame and guilt around sexuality? What happened to the spirituality in sexuality? So through living in the Geisha House and seeing what goes on for the training of the geishas and whatever he learned from this man, he came back to Chicago, where he came from, and began the workshops in that form by integrating sexuality and spirituality, and it blossomed from that point on. He was actually very famous. He was the voice of the Lone Ranger years ago on the radio, and was a well-known radio personality before he went into the Army. So that fame kind of got him the attention that he wanted. He tried starting one of the first radio psychological talk shows, and he wanted people to ask about sexuality. In those days, this was in the 60s, they bleeped him off the air. They couldn't talk about sexuality. So he left the radio and started the workshop.
The workshop, and he was leading himself? And
yeah, he led for himself for many years.
Did he train you?
Yes, yeah. There have been seven of us. All of us, I think, were trained by Stan. Stan died about 4 years ago now, but he trained all of us. We've all been around for quite a while.
Do you remember something very meaningful about your relationship with him, or something he taught you, or?
We just had, in the very first workshop I was in, there was a moment in time where I was in front of the room sharing, and Stan was working with me. I was a participant. And there was a moment in time where I had come from Eastern spirituality background, and there was a moment in time in which he came over and bowed and kissed my feet. And I just ripped, because I had gone to the feet of other gurus and bowed, but I had never even conceived that anybody would bow to me and kiss my feet and honor me that way. And it was a very profound moment in time for Stan and I. It was the birth of our relationship, actually.
Ah, he was a very intuitive leader.
He was a beautiful man.
Peter, one of the things I remember from the high workshop is that it helps people with their body image. That's one particular focus that I didn't so much need myself, but I thought it was very good in this culture. For me, coming from Europe, from the Netherlands, I've always noticed in this country how uncomfortable people are with their own nudity and with their own bodies. So I thought that was a very good thing, even though it wasn't so much for me. People do have the choice during the workshop to take their clothes off. Nothing sexual will happen during the workshop, but it's just another thing where you have a choice, right? Can you comment on that?
Sure. At the first workshop, the level 1, there's a time on Saturday afternoon after people have been vulnerable with one another and felt connected with one another and had lots of different kinds of emotional, intimate connections. There's an invitation to remove the clothing, and some people choose to do that, some people choose to leave their clothing on, and we make it very clear, it's like you said, it's not about sexuality. It's a lot of times when we take our clothes off in the presence of another person or people, it has to do with sex, and it's not about that. It's about becoming more comfortable in your own skin and really feeling that you can be that vulnerable with other people, because it kind of represents another level of vulnerability when they take their clothes off, if they choose to. And then also there's an opportunity for people to see other human bodies and see how beautiful they are in all the different shapes and sizes. You know, if this were the 1890s, the Rubenesque body would be worshipped, and what we think is so beautiful now would be considered skinny at that point in time. So,
right, yes.
You know, how human bodies look is very arbitrary, and people really let go of their judgments, not only of their own body, but of other people's body, and see the beauty and the miracle of the human body itself in all its shapes and sizes.
So then you have a workshop crowd, as I remember, usually 70, 80 people in the workshop, where some people are half dressed, some people have removed partial clothing, and some people have removed all their clothing. Because, yeah, there's no rule, or there's no need to do it.
And people choose, again, just like I said before, moment by moment by moment. So some people who took their clothing off when we offered that, the workshop becomes clothing optional at that point for the rest of the workshop. Some people put some clothes back on. Some people that left their clothes on in that moment choose to remove their clothes. Some people have gone through all the levels of the workshop with their clothes on. So it's lots of different options available. And
because there is permission to do whatever you want to do, people feel relaxed, and I think the permission part is one of the most important things. If you know that you have a free choice, then an amazing kind of intimacy can happen, right?
Yeah, it's really empowering each individual and trusting them with the choices, you know, like really trusting. If, you know, there have been people that said, I'm leaving my clothes on. I took all my clothes off in the 60s and was a hippie, you know. I've been naked around lots of people, and in this moment, I just want to see what it's like to leave my clothing on. So it's really empowering people by saying, I trust your choice. You know, I don't have an agenda for you. I trust what you choose, moment by moment.
I've heard you use the word love several times, and I remember from being in your workshop that I experienced you as very, very loving and very compassionate. And you are a psychotherapist, you are a meditation teacher, correct?
Yes.
You have your work with Hai and you also have your own work.
Correct.
Would you speak a little bit about that?
Sure. I spent 70s in different ashrams, with different spiritual teachers. My first experience was actually in Oakland here with a man named Muktananda. I walked by his ashram, had no idea what an ashram was drawn in the door, and actually was in what are called satori experiences, where there was no ego for a period of time, and there was just bliss. And so that was the beginning of my spiritual journey. And I've had different teachers. I've been to India any number of times, and with my psychology background and with my meditation background, I'm kind of a bridge between Eastern spirituality and Western psychology. So I've created different kinds of, I call them, it's a meditation retreat and a workshop kind of combined. So there's an opportunity to be in connection with other people and then sit in meditation. And what that does is have people, because of the vulnerability and the opening of the heart, they go very, very deeply into the depths of their heart, their soul, very different places than is accessed through the linear mind. So it's finding other parts of our human experience other than within the realms of the mind.
Wow, this is much more significant to you than being a psychologist. Right?
Yes.
It is.
Yeah, very much so. My joke is I've unlearned whatever I learned getting my master's. That was not, I mean, it was fine at the time, but there's something much deeper than that.
You probably wouldn't be able to pass a single exam.
Probably not, yeah, at this point.
And you are also an author. I have 2 books of you here. Seeds of Light, which is your first book, and then Living Life in Love, which is your second book, which is not a regular book that people have to read from A to Z. It is a book filled with sort of a poetry, aphorisms, you call it aphorisms, and those are little blurbs with wisdom, correct? If I may read a couple for people to get an impression of what the book is about. This one is called How Are You? How are you does not matter. What matters is how you are in relationship to how you are.
And so what that's about is the freedom from thinking that you have to be in joy or bliss or happiness in order to be in connection with yourself. That when you step one step back and have compassion for you, whether you're in sadness, joy, anger, sexual turn on, no sexual turn on, however you are inside is part of the human experience. So it's allowing yourself to step back underneath all of that and be the witness to and watch you as a human being with compassion and fascination.
Whatever you're experiencing, even if you're experiencing craziness.
Yes, exactly. You're not those experiences, you're the watcher of those experiences in the world of meditation.
Yeah, you're your own witness. Let me read another one. Diving in. If you seek outside yourself, no one is left at home to receive life's blessings. When you dive into yourself, you are a magnet attracting all you ever need, plus love you can't conceive.
So I think a lot of times what people do to try and connect is they leave themselves and try and come up, hi Max, I'm trying to connect with you. And as I come out there, then there's no one here for you to connect with. And it's a mystery kind of like if I stay deep in my heart and you stay in your heart, then there's a kind of connection that's not explainable again with the linear mind. It's in other realms it has us connect on a spiritual level that gets rid of the illusion that we're separate from one another and really begins what reality is, which is that we're really deeply, deeply connected in our hearts and souls.
And it takes us out of something else. That's like thinking, obsessing about what to do to interact with others. Protecting yourself, making sure I don't dump on you or that you don't dump on me, like this whole game of what's the next thing to do or how to reach out. This whole area of thinking about what to do next is not there if you trust in your own wisdom and your own love, and you just believe that it's going to happen naturally.
Yeah, I mean it's deeper than a belief. It's an experience that's deeper than beliefs. It's a way of knowing that the whole universe lives in here, so you actually are part of me and I'm part of you, and you're my dream and I'm your dream, but we all are part of one another. And when you really not just think that, but experience that and experience the merging of hearts and souls, there's a very different way of going through the world. There's a way of seeing that each person is really doing the best that they can. Their intentions are good. There's a way to just live in compassion that has a lot of freedom and a lot of joy inside. When you judge another person, you actually poison yourself. You're releasing a dark black energy into yourself,
Yes.
So you're hurting yourself with the judgment.
So you wrote this book. Did you channel those aphorisms, Peter? Is this channeled or?
I'm not into channeling. It's just whatever comes when I'm quiet inside.
Came through.
Channeling implies that there's something other than me in the universe, and that there's some other entity out there that has something that's being fed through me. It's all me. It's all you. We're all part of the whole thing. So anything that comes through me is part of you, is part of the commonality of us.
Sure.
So,
do you use the book in your
I
work?
I teach classes. I teach 8-week classes now. I'm doing it on the internet, which is very interesting. That's a new thing for me.
What's the name of your class?
Spiritual Awakening.
Uh-huh.
And I also do weekend meditation retreats that are in silence, that actually take us deeper into that. But this book is not just a book to read, it's a teaching book as well. In the back there are different exercises to do. And
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah.
So the book is called Living Life in Love, Peter Rengel, and your website is peterrengel.com.
Correct.
The website of the HAI Institute is hai.org.
HAI, yeah.
hai.org, and peterrengel.com for your individual work, meditation courses, and your personal work, your individual. You also said you love your individual work with people.
Yeah, when I lead workshops, I'm working on the collective, and then when I'm in my private practice, I'm really tracking a person's life, week by week, and it's very beautiful to watch. I'm particularly interested in working with people that are on a spiritual path and have an awareness of that, and profound things happen in my office. It's very, very beautiful to watch what happens for people. And these days I'm on Skype. I mean, I have my resistance to computers and that whole world, but
Yes.
there are ways that they can be quite useful. And so I Skype with people all around the world on a weekly basis to have them go deeper into their hearts, basically.
Is there a place for laughter and playfulness in your work?
Sure. In my meditation weekend, there's actually a laughing meditation.
A laughing meditation?
You get 40 people, 60 people laughing spontaneously in a room. It's incredible to watch what happens. And then afterwards, with that humor, you sit in meditation, and people are spontaneously roaring in laughter, and it kind of is infectious in the room. So yes, God has a sense of humor.
And so if there is nothing to laugh about, then you just ask him to laugh anyway? Or how does that work?
There's a way to access any of our emotions without content, without needing something in particular. So what happens is, in that room, the invitation is to just go ha, ha, ha. And at first it's fake, but enough people hit real laughter that then other people come over and they catch it,
yes.
And it just spreads. And we do this for only 10 minutes, and the stomach muscles just go nuts.
I'm already feeling it, Peter. Yeah, I'm getting it.
Yeah.
You do it for a few minutes, and then it becomes natural.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you would like people to know about your work? Something that we haven't covered?
Just that's what my life is about, and it's certainly, I can't teach anything that I don't experience myself. So being with my wife for as long as I have, being with my son who's now 14, that's where my teaching comes, is how in love I can be with them. And I'm very aware that that what happens in my house with my family, I'm the creator of that. So when that house is humming, it's because I'm in my heart. And if anything is out in that house, I look in here to see what's out in me, to have that disharmony going on in the house. So I'm responsible for the harmony.
So what happens when you get angry, or you get into a fight, or you could get into a fight? Or,
when that happens, then there's a stopping, hopefully, and a looking on both if it's with my wife, on both our parts. And vulnerability is the key. Tenderness is the key. Either of us can have moments of anger, and then it's not about having the anger. It's what you do in the next moment after the anger happens, and how responsible you are, and how tender you are, and how much you can just be real around. Wow, sweetie, I see this is what caused my anger, and my apologies to you, or whatever comes there, and kind of a humbleness and an acceptance of ourselves as human beings, and I think a lot of people think, oh, we should never get angry, but that's not the truth of our experience.
That's not the truth.
So it's not whether we get angry or not, it's what we do with it after it happens. So there's something around when we have a reaction. The reaction happens faster than we can control, but it's about having a response to the reaction is where the choice is. I spent years meditating thinking I should stay in equanimity no matter what happened around me, and it wasn't my experience, so I kept making myself wrong for not being in equanimity. And then I realized I'm a human being. I can have my reactions, but then what do I do to choose after that?
Sure. Well, we're coming to the end of the interview. I want to say thank you for all the great work you do. It's very, very important. Please keep doing the workshops, and I hope the high workshop will be taught forever. Thanks for coming on the show and for sharing yourself and to share about your path of love. That seems to be the thread of your work.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yes.
Thanks.
And this was Private Matters. I'm Max van Praag. We're talking about authentically thriving in intimacy. See you next time.
Quem mostrava esse caminho longe, quem mostrava esse caminho longe, esse caminho para Santo Tomé. Quem mostrava esse caminho longe, quem mostrava esse caminho longe, esse caminho para Santo Tomé.